Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you could ask me questions and I answer them, and I'm starting to say that very, very fast. On the YouTube side of things, questions under the stream, well, I'm live streaming it, so it's still technically right. Under the video, these are some videos from this last week. We've had a lot of Final Fantasy XIV news, and I have a video that I'm going to be releasing later today on Sunday regarding my thoughts on Astrologian changes, so it's going to be a really busy next week with patch 3.4 on Tuesday. I'm going to be chain streaming, recording, releasing as many videos as humanly possible. You guys know how much I like to get out all of the basic guides for everybody within the first week. I am also anticipating live streaming some guide making this coming patch because I want to be live with Final Fantasy XIV as much as possible. If I live stream my guide making, I can actually save a lot of time, stay live for you guys, and still produce the same level of content. Hell, it might even be better because people might be able to chime in on mechanics that maybe are missed when you're over-geared for things or things like that. I'm hoping to see as much community effort as possible when it comes to the guides on this coming patch. So that's with this Tuesday. We also have TwitchCon this coming weekend, which is going to interrupt the flow of the live streams. I am going to still try to live stream in the early mornings the entire weekend, and I will have an afternoon stream as well. But TwitchCon's obviously going to disrupt that constant streaming. Just makes the first couple of days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all that more important when it comes to completing content and getting videos out, if you know what I mean. So with that out of the way, let's get into the questions. I started the Monday video recording a little bit late here on the live stream, so let's get started with the questions. You know, before I get started with those questions, actually, I'll add this part in. Don't forget, we actually reopened the Patreon. That is now available. I haven't used it in a few years, and I made an entire video about it, which is going to be one of those 3 videos you saw at the bottom. We're currently hit Tier 1. Which brings us the return of the Healer Happy series. So thank you to those of you who contributed to hitting the first goal over on the Patreon. The second goal will return the Bestiary series, and I'm also taking just something that's not on there. I'm just using that extra time that I feel like I can afford because of the people contributing over on Patreon. I feel like I can record a few more videos regarding other games, so I am going to be working on that as well. Starting in October, the Healer Happy series will be returning as well. Now, with that little announcement out of the way, be sure to go check out the Patreon, the rewards, the tiers, all that stuff. Now, let's get started with the questions. Alright, first question. Well, I assume this means I get to go first. This isn't my first question, but have this. Grade 6 blind materia. Is it like blind meaning like blind on hit? Does it make me blind? Am I Lee Sin? Am I a monk? If I'm a monk with blind materia, am I Lee Sin the blind monk? That's all I want to know. 1, do you think we'll ever see an evasion tank job? No. Just bottom line. The only way that evasion tanks work is if enemies hit so frequently that dodge and parry and block are more valuable stats. So valuable so that an entire job can be focused around those stats. You need to, the rate of attack needs to just be so much higher for us to have an evasion tank. So without a complete game overhaul, I don't see it as a possibility. Yes, it's possible to have abilities that sort of act as an evasion, like perfect dodge, but they even got rid of perfect dodge. That's not even in the game anymore. So you can see that they're really moving away from being able to 100% evade an attack. And 2, do you think they would ever add more benefits for chain bonuses, such as high enough bonus and mobs have a chance to drop high-end crafting mats? I don't think there's any content that warrants having a chain bonus. So the only thing I really like doing with a chain bonus is the power leveling methods that I've shown. If you haven't watched my old power leveling videos, the chain bonus is there once you get to the point where the EXP is at max. Getting power leveled on chain bonuses is incredibly fast. It's insane how much EXP you'll get if you're able to maintain that chain bonus while being power leveled. And to be honest, if you go in with 2 or 3 people and fight mobs way stronger than you and you can maintain a chain bonus there, it's still actually decent experience points. It's just you could go into a dungeon, do the same thing, and not have to worry so much about playing it out in the open world. So no, I don't see them giving us bonuses for that. The bonus that it already achieves is kind of minuscule, and it's really not important much past level 25. Hell, if you're solo, it's not really much important past level 10. But I don't see them coming in and giving us any more benefits for that, unless they extend the duration of it, just because, as my chat has suggested, doing it in the diadem, it would need to be so long that diadem mobs would need to be brought down to a much lower level. Otherwise, it's not a feasible thing to really think you're going to achieve. And 3, with you mostly through count up, what system or mechanic from other Final Fantasy games would you like to see in 14? So that, I don't actually like doing that because it doesn't make sense. You can't really just borrow a mechanic from a previous Final Fantasy game without completely reworking it, and then it's not the same anymore. You could say it's inspired by, but I don't really find many mechanics from other Final Fantasy games to work that well for that. Like, you can't use the row system. GCD is basically a modern age ATB gauge. Your ATB just being how long it takes for your cooldowns to retire, or to go completely around. I mean, you have the job systems already in the game. Those are some of the big ones. Elemental resistances are always bullshit in MMOs, so those are really better for action RPGs and stuff like that, and single player RPGs. So no, not really. I don't think there's really many combat systems that 14 could benefit from, specifically from other Final Fantasy games. Does that mean that there's not any new systems they could come up with within Final Fantasy XIV's engine? No, I think there are. I just don't think borrowing one from another game is going to work pretty much in any way, shape, or form. All right, next question. Yo, Happy, 2 questions. 1, how do Final Fantasy XI's dungeons and story missions work in comparison to 14's? I kind of want to mess around 11, but I feel I might be too spoiled with how straightforward it is. Yeah, there's nothing straightforward about Final Fantasy XI. You'll pretty much need an online guide alongside you the entire time if you've never played before. It starts you with really basic missions, ones that are for your starting city, whatever city you pick to start in. You'll be able to rank up from ranks 1 to 10. It's not that hard to get those done because leveling in Final Fantasy XI is so much easier nowadays. You could solo all of those with some trust NPCs, which are like NPCs that you can fight with throughout most of even some of the instance content. There's a lot of content you could bring those guys to. So I don't even want to say open world like I was about to. Just most content you can bring these NPCs, and they're incredibly useful. And then they have, per expansion stories, you have Xylart, Chains of Promethea, Treasures of Adur Gone. You have Wings of the Goddess, the Abyssius story, the add-on scenario stories, the I can't even remember, Seekers of Adolin story, and then you finally have the final one, which I can't even remember the name of right now. It was basically the goodbye story, the finale of Final Fantasy XI. For the life of me, I can't remember the name of it right now, which is pretty embarrassing considering it's not a very difficult name. Yeah, but each of them has their own story. In some cases, they link over, like eventually Chains of Promethea and Xylart link over, and you have sort of a little bonus scenario where the stories come together and make sense. Rhapsodies of Vana'diel, there you go. I remembered Vana'diel, I just couldn't remember Rhapsodies. And Rhapsodies of Vana'diel kind of brings all those other stories together in a neat little tidy way. And then you have all the little side quests, but the big thing is there's no indicator above an NPC's head to let you know where a quest is. So it's really all comes down to either waiting to find out when you can do a quest, or reading the NPC's dialogue very carefully, or even checking your quest log. And then sometimes even then, you're not going to have any idea where something started or where you need to go immediately after. So it's not very straightforward at all. You're pretty much going to want a guide right next to you when you do it. And 2, this question is probably more important. Estinian versus Raubahn, who would win for this? Estinian has one of Nidhogg's eyes, and Raubahn has both arms. With one of Nidhogg's eyes, Estinian should win. With the amount of ether, the problem is, if Estinian did win that fight, he'd probably be lost to Nidhogg. Similar to the situation where in the level 50 Dragoon quest, that would probably happen to Estinian again, but I'd like to believe Estinian would win that fight. All right, next question. Thank you for answering my question last week. It made my day a bit. Well, I'm glad I made a bit of your day. Now is the question roulette time, because 14 might be offline when you upload this video. Oh, it will be offline when I upload this video. As always, you take one question. I'm going to take the alternatives. After hearing your love for machinists, would you ever play or stream GTA Online? What does that have anything to do with machinists? Because let's face it, GTA's machinist has a better arsenal and more DPS. What does that have anything to do with machinists? This question makes no sense whatsoever. I actually love Grand Theft Auto. I played 3, Vice... Actually, I played Grand Theft Auto 2, 3, Vice City, 4... and I didn't buy 5 as much as I really wanted to. I kind of just followed it vicariously through Achievement Hunter. I fucking love Grand Theft Auto. I find it endlessly entertaining, and I love sandbox games. I love just messing around and doing whatever I can, especially online. But I don't really have anyone to play it reliably with online, so I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. All right, on that note, next question. Hey, Hap, how you doing? I'm doing aight. Not my first time, but still have a coupon to play World of Final Fantasy a week before it comes out. Listen, you don't understand how badly I need that coupon. October 25th is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, Dark Souls 3 DLC, and World of Final Fantasy. In short, I'm fucked. Anyway, only 2 small questions this time. One, do you think we will get any more solo side story quests where you go into dungeons with story-based NPCs? Yeah, we'll definitely see more of those in the future. In what capacity? I don't know, but expect that more in the main story. Expect the occasional side story quest with that, but we'll definitely see it more. And question number 2, if they ever had a unique monster spawn option in the open world, do you think Aether Rarity gear would be a good reward for killing them, just to get extra gear rewards for newer players exploring? I think that's okay. I think if you're going to do that kind of system where rare enemies spawn in the world and anyone who participates in a kill gets like a piece of pink gear and you make it level appropriate, I think that's okay. The problem is developing those kind of contents and developing spawn conditions and making sure that it doesn't conflict with fates and things like that is a little bit more than the effort than what it's worth, because it's only ether gear. Like it could be complete shit, it could be worthwhile to you, but I don't see a system working in much other of a way in Final Fantasy XIV, because in any other way you could have just gone into a dungeon probably and gotten that loot in like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Alrighty then, next question. Yo Haps, how you doing? First time poster, so you get your choice of 1-to-1 lore to scripture conversion or 10 weeks double weekly scripture cap. Lore to scripture conversion? I'll take the lore to scripture conversion for the I guess it wouldn't even really. I expect to probably beat A11 within the first 8 days. Probably, I imagine. Depends on how much time with TwitchCon and all, but scripture conversion, yeah, you know what, I'll take that. 10 week of double scripture cap, I could care less about. Once I beat A12, I'm in no rush to get all my scripture gear, and that'll probably be fast enough. 2 questions. One, with the constant quick pulls of A and S rank mobs being a huge issue, how would you think of a scaling reward system that benefits players to wait for people to show up? More players generating aggro, the longer it generates higher rewards. The longer you wait, there's no way to generate a longer you wait unless it's literally just the mob is alive for 10 minutes and then you get better rewards. And even then, if there's 2 hunts up at the same time, one would argue it's probably more time efficient to just kill this one, go to the next one, and wait at that one, and then that still creates the same problem. I do think they need some sort of dynamic scaling system when it comes to these kind of when it comes to hunts, but it's also not something that is really that important in terms of, how do I describe this? It's important to make sure that people don't early pull, but you're never going to fairly enforce that, because for every one reason there is to not early pull, there's got to be somebody who just wants to see the world burn. There's always going to be somebody who just wants to see the world burn. Like, that's it. It's going to happen. That's the bottom line. So I don't see adding. I would like to see dynamic scaling. I don't think it needs to be with the rewards, just with the mob itself. And 2, now that you've gone a full raid cycle out of World Prog, although I have beaten A8 Savage, what would you say the pros and cons to each are, and which you personally prefer? So the pro to World First is your EP is bigger. I'm sorry, that's it. It's a little bit more complicated than that. I personally like the feeling of competition, and in the case of World First, I prefer the PvE race competition over a direct PvP competition. I'm more confident in my ability to learn and complete mechanics than I am to learn and compete against other players directly. So the big thing is, that's about it. Everything else is better just to be your average like raider. I mean, focus on improving your skills so you're a solid player, but the world race is in no way worth it for people who just are normal. I don't know what I was thinking, wasting so much time doing World Prog, all those patches, and it was just, I put so many things off. I put the success of my channel off. Okay, so I like to make this comparison very frequently. The reason I didn't stream Final Fantasy XIV much when it first came out is because I was so focused on making content for YouTube that I just didn't stream it very often. I didn't stream myself going into the raids. I didn't stream myself recording videos. I cut my stream time short. I was only streaming 3 times a week. You want to know who streamed Final Fantasy XIV when it came out? Carnage. And you know what? He made that game, and the way he like focused his stream on it and like just built his stream on that game, look at where he is now. He is the sign of success of what I might have been able to have. I might have been. Now, obviously, that would have come with some cons. I probably would not have streamed Final Fantasy XIV as long. Like, as you see, you know, Carnage doesn't stream Final Fantasy XIV anymore. You know, once he was able to transfer that into the rest of his broadcasting career, he did the right thing. He didn't let himself be a one-trick pony, and that's the one thing I'm never not good at. If I love a game, those are the games I'm going to focus on playing. And I loved Final Fantasy XIV, I still do, and I probably would have stayed with it, and my success definitely wouldn't have been on the same level as his. So kudos to him for not letting himself get caught in that trap, which is a common trap on both Twitch and YouTube. He's a very smart man, he's very business savvy, and honestly should be, in terms of increasing growth and transferring out of being a one game or a one trick pony, he should be like a role model when it comes to that. But I always think back to that, and like I wanted World First so bad that I probably cost myself like 5 years on my career just by not streaming Final Fantasy XIV the day it came out, like, or even just the week it came out, or just not putting all my efforts into streaming it. That's what I like to think was my biggest mistake, and that's the one biggest regret I have with doing World Progression. On that note, next question, Yo Haps. Those questions. What are you looking forward to most out of the new patch? I always look forward to the raids most, like Sophia included. I consider on even numbered patches for the extreme primals to be part of World Progression, if not to get the gear itself to improve your skills. But, you know, with the crafted weapons, Sophia will probably be a one and done kind of thing for me. Maybe I'll help people with it on occasion. I'd like to do a little bit more of like just general content when it comes to streaming Final Fantasy XIV patch 3.4, but the creator, Savage, definitely my #1 focus. And 2, you made a joke about the Viking that may or may not be a new job. Would that be a DPS Marauder? So Viking in the old games wields axes, 2 axes, I believe, one-handed. Excuse me, one-handed axes, and that's probably just the bubbly coming up from the sparkling water right here. And is a tank. So I don't really know. The only reason why I made that suggestion is because of the rumored name of the expansion being Stormblood, and Stormblood is... It's got a lot of potential implications. One of them is very clearly Vikings. If you played Magic the Gathering, you know that Stormblood is very commonly used on certain themes of cards. It could also be referring to, Ida's, what's the word I'm looking for? Not heritage. Well, it could be heritage or bloodline, for example. Stormblood. Also, I think somebody pointed out that the deity, Rhalgr, that the Alamegans actually worship is aspected of lightning, so storm, blood. You know, it's just, there's so many things. Viking is just one that came off the top of my head. All right, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, longtime watcher, first-time poster, teleport dem, you can have this. That's the last place I want to go. Fuck the Conchcat Highlands. I was wondering if any information has been released regarding the PS4 Pro support for 14. Specifically, will it see an upgrade to 4K graphics? You know, that's a great question that has not been answered as far as I know. I would love to be corrected. I'm actually getting a PlayStation 4 Pro. And before you go, Happy, why? I'm not going to play it in a 4K. I'm literally just getting it because I play video games for a living. And I might as well get it. In the case I ever need one, I'd rather have one right away than wait till I need it at the last minute. So I'll probably, I'm kind of tempted to pre-order an NX while I'm at it under that same pretense. Just, man, Nintendo and YouTube. It would just be so much only for Twitch. Unless, well, I guess it depends. It would be on a title-to-title basis, because obviously not every Nintendo title that's on a Nintendo console is a Nintendo title that you can't upload to YouTube. I mean, Final Fantasy Explorers, for example, I was perfectly fine. But I'm considering getting the NX just because of that, for that same reason. I'm also looking for a PlayStation VR. I've used that before, and I think one of my friends he got 2 pre-ordered, so I think I'm going to take one of his. I'm going to pay him for one of his, and then we'll wrap that one up so I can make content on that as well. Alrighty then, next questions. Hey, Happy, not new, so no bonus, but long-time watcher, thank you. Any tips for what stats could be melding to gear for a little extra kick? Want to do Savage content. For context, so the rule 90% of the time is crit over det over speed, spell speed or skill, depending on physical or magical. In the case of Dark Knight, it would be crit det. In the case of Black Mage, it would be spell speed crit. In the case of White Mage is very, very different. White Mage has a lot of arguments. Most people go with the accuracy melds if you're doing Savage content because they don't want to miss. When the creator Savage is brand new, when you're still gearing up, and if you want to do that, you'll probably want Vit melds on your accessories. I'm not saying you'll need them because we don't know yet. I'm saying it's very likely that when people are at lower gear levels in the Creator Savage, that they're probably going to put Vitality on their accessories. I just think it's a likely thing. I know that even in anticipation of that, my right side accessories, before I upgrade to I-250 right side accessories, I have Vitality melds on my I-240 right side accessories, just for the anticipation of day one to make sure that I can survive mechanics sufficiently before I get my I-250 stuff. But White Mage, there's a lot of debate. Accuracy is a big one. Piety is another one. A lot of White Mages go for. Spell Speed is very, very high on that list as well. Crit and Det, some White Mages prefer them, but most White Mages I know go with either Accuracy, Piety, or Spell Speed melds. Mostly Accuracy and Spell Speed. Occasionally a piece of Piety sprinkled about there. Also, I'm pretty sure you went over this. I don't remember where. In any case, Final Fantasy XIV, PS Pro, and VR is it happening. So, from what I remember, the PlayStation VR is actually works as a visual device for any PlayStation 4 game. It doesn't necessarily give you VR compatibility, but you can wear it and it'll technically still, show you the game. I don't know if that's still the case, but Final Fantasy XIV probably won't develop any specific resources for VR. I, however, wouldn't be surprised for them to give the PS4 Pro higher tier options like what are available on the PC version. All right, next question. Sup, bleh? Before I start, I would like to let you know that giving me your number is like chat roulette. You just know that you're going to get some D. Man, that winky face is just really bothering me for some reason. Question 1. So Square Enix needs 2 really talented and motivated constant creators. I guess constant creators, developers is probably a better word. There's like 7.5 billion people on this world. You're telling me that at least 2 fit the requirements and want to work. So, first of all, let's narrow it down. 7.5 billion people. You can't say that because, first of all, you need to find people interested in a job in the gaming industry. Then you need to narrow it down to people who are interested specifically on development. Then you need to find people who are specifically interested in developing in MMOs. Then you need a company or you need an individual that knows Japanese because they need to be able to communicate. Then they need to be willing to work in Japan. And then they also need to be able to develop content pretty much 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that's pretty much how the development team works. So there's definitely 2 people out there. Square Enix just needs to find them. Why do you think it's really taking them so long to complete the Final Fantasy XIV team? Here's the thing. They want people that are already experienced. You know the whole, people in the Raid Finder in the Party Finder where they're looking for people who have already completed the fight and they refuse to take anyone without experience? Think of the Final Fantasy XIV team like that. They don't want to take any time away from developing the game to train a new employee. They want to do as little training as possible. They want someone who can roll in and immediately be able to pump stuff out. That's very unlikely and not very feasible, and they probably need an alternative motive or an alternative method to actually accomplish that. But that is a big reason why they don't want to be like, well, we have these 2 new great people, but we need to delay the patch a month in order to train them and let them create content for said patch. Question 2, why don't you become a content creator real quick and join me? So it's not content creator. And again, I don't fit any of those. I didn't finish college because I felt that my college education was a complete waste of time and that anything college could have taught me, I could have learned on my own. And that was specifically in regards to game design. So, also, unless you're in like a really good class, let's just say a lot of people in college who get into game design have no idea how to design a game. And they aren't very willing to learn it, surprisingly. Having ideas is nice. Having a team to execute on those ideas and being able to actually work on your own idea. You can't just be an idea man. In the gaming industry, you cannot just be an idea man. Hey, I had this idea. Great, we're going to pay you fucking $30,000 to $50,000 a year just to give us your ideas. You just sit back and relax. We'll do everything else. But I'm glad you had an idea. You can't just be an idea guy in the industry. It's great to have an idea, but if you don't have the means to execute on it, you're of no value to anybody. Question 3, this is kind of a test regarding question 2. If you were the head of the 14 team, what would you change to Astro to make it desirable as other healers? So I mentioned it earlier, I'm actually releasing a video. I don't go too much into that in the video. I'd say that buffing the balance is not the right decision. I'd say that the spear might as well be replaced with another card at this point, or have its effect completely changed. I think the shield buffs are okay. I think Nocturnal needs flat shield buffs, but to be honest, the fact that Time Dilation and Celestial Opposition do nothing in terms of, if you think about the way Time Dilation and Celestial Opposition work with your Diurnal Sect, yes, you probably don't use Celestial Opposition to extend the duration of HOTS unless it lines up with your Luminous Ether. Okay, fine. But they still work with the regens and basically increase the overall potency of said regens. When it comes to Nocturnal, it extends the duration of your shield. Who gives a shit? I would like to have seen Time Dilation make the shield more powerful, and then Celestial Opposition, same thing, but in the AoE. Those are probably the 2 biggest changes I would have liked to have seen, but the bottom line is, without nothing short of giving Astro its own pet, they're probably never going to be equivalent to a Scholar until the expansion, when we see if they actually rework them. Astro is going to be really overpowered, though, so if you are an Astro who's been waiting for your time to shine, first of all, Diurnal Astros, you've actually already had that time because Diurnal Astro has been fantastic. Now you're going to be even more desirable. Expect groups to want to change one of their healers to an Astro, or expect groups to have healers that ask to change to Astro. It's going to be really good. Question, no, I already answered question 3. Those card buffs are pretty insane. But anyway, those are going to be my answers to you. All right, next question. Hello, Mr. Happy. I hope you are ready for patch 3.4. Have a 3.4 crafted weapon of your choice, dude. Machinist weapon. Instantly. I just got my Midas Musketoon, too. I think I've killed A8 Savage 3 times, and I got my Midas Musketoon on the 3rd kill. We didn't even raid this last week, because we just wanted to take a break, let people who want to play the World of Warcraft raid do that for a week, and now into the creator on Tuesday. So here's my questions for the week. 1, have you heard about Revelation Online? I have not. It's new free-to-play MMO entering in closed beta in October. In this game, each dungeon seems to have several difficulties, like easy, hard, god mode. Last one has 3 levels of difficulties. One of the main differences is the inclusion or exclusion mechanics. Oh, no, this isn't that different from games like Dragon's Nest, or like 90% of the Korean instance dungeon-based, like Vanguard. What was it? Not Vanguard Online. Friggin'. What was the fucking game? That was Mabinogi Heroes. Somebody in my chat will remind me. That's like 90% of multi-tiered difficulty content. I mean, here's the thing. That's true in Final Fantasy XIV. Each, like, normal mode and Savage mode have completely different mechanics. They, some include mechanics, some exclude mechanics. Vindictus, that's the one I was thinking of. I don't really see... Unless you mean, like, you can literally turn off individual mechanics. That's a little odd, because I guess unless the rewards are better for having all the mechanics turned on, like, then I mean, even then, it's like, why wouldn't I just do that? And then people could practice mechanics one at a time? I don't know. It just doesn't really seem like a good idea. It just seems like every generic, like, dungeon-based Korean MMO that I've ever played in my life. 2, given the time constraints for a player with a new patch is released, which part of the game would you put a hold on? So, why would I put a hold on? That's a good question. The main story is something I could enjoy last, personally. I could just go to Zelfatol, watch the story for that, and be okay, and come back to that once I've exhausted everything else. That's me personally. Most people will probably do that first, if they're not doing Alexander or Sophia or something like that first. I would probably do Aquariums last. That's like not even like a piece of content for me as a player. I'm happy for the people that are going to enjoy it. It's not a piece of content for me. So... that. Why people hate Lords of Verminion. So, Lords of Verminion, they said that the reason 3.1 took an extra month to develop was A, because they gave people a little bit of time off to let them relax after developing Heavensward. But the bigger reason was they said they wanted to make sure the balance for Lords of Verminion and Diadem were right, were like really good. So they took that extra month to you know, hone out those 2 pieces of content. Neither of those pieces of content were honed by the time we got them. And so it's regularly laughed at as one of the contents that held back patch 3.1, that made 3.1 the weakest patch in Final Fantasy XIV history. So the fact that it's hitting the Duty Finder, nothing short of laughable. Could it do better in the Duty Finder? Yeah, will it? Probably not, to be honest. To be honest, it's impressive what they did with Lords of Verminion, because it's got way more intricacies to it than I feel that it should, but it ends up drumming down to people just do the PvE challenges by zerging all as like Yagiri or Odin or one of their favorites that they just like to zerg through the PvE events on, and then they never touch it again. And 4, are you getting one of the new apartments? I might as well. There's like 60,000 apartments. It's ridiculous. There's 180, so there's 90 apartments per ward/subdivision. So for every ward and every subdivision, there's 90 apartments. That's twice as many as I thought. I thought it was just going to be 90 per ward, not subdivisions. And then they said they can increase any of those apartment houses to 500 capacity maximum. I am in no rush to get an apartment. And honestly, nobody should be afraid of not getting an apartment, because there's no server that demand can't meet. There's no server, not Gilgamesh, not Balmung. No server is going to have a constraint issue with too many apartments being bought. It is impossible for 70 fucking thousand apartments to disappear on every fucking server. All right, it can't happen. So we're fine. I'm gonna save that for last. All right, on to the next question. Hey, Mike, guess I'm a first-time poster here, so I'll give you a $40 deep dish pizza. So, fun little fact. That's a story. So, Saturday, what day was that? Saturday, September 24th. First of all, we adopted a cat. His name is Aloha Dwayne the Cat Johnson. And every time we got to clean his litter box so we can smell what the cat is cooking. And on top of that, earlier that day, Mel bought I'm going to put this in quotes, Chicago-style pizza. It was not Chicago-style at all. It was an abomination. She paid $40 for it. And I was freaking the fuck out. I was like, you call them back and tell them that you're not paying $40 fucking dollars for one of their shitty pizzas. And I had the pizza. It's not worth nearly $40. Oh, by the way, that's without a delivery fee. She had to go pick it up. I'd just like to, for the record, I would like to put that on there. Became a little bit of a meme for about a day or so, and now whenever somebody cheers 4,000, not during Mondays with Mr. Happy recordings, guys, if you cheer 4,000 while I'm in the middle of a recording, you will not get this Easter egg. You will not. Every time somebody cheers 4,000 in my Twitch chat, it pops up with a pizza on the screen. It says, "It's a pizza," which was my reaction to it being $40, pretty much. On to the next note. So anyway, I have two questions. First, now that you've had a bit of time and experience with the bit system, oh wow, that's fucking... Oh, well, I know who's asking the question, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised about this question. What are its benefits, shortcomings, longevity? So, for anyone who's confused about the bit system, that's the cheer system I just described. In Twitch chat, it's basically a way of purchasing a currency on Twitch through Amazon, and you can use that currency to type emotes into the stream, and those emotes directly pay the broadcaster. If you cheer 100, if you cheer 100 bits, the broadcaster gets $1. It's a 1-to-1 ratio on what the broadcaster receives. And it's been when it was first revealed, a lot of people were very critical of the idea, and I think that in Europe it still doesn't work very well, because not only is the person who's tipping you paying Amazon that extra amount, but you're also getting VAT taxed on the back end, so it pulls money out from both sides. So as a European broadcaster, I would probably not touch the cheer system. As a North American, though, it's been nothing but a boon to my stream, an ed boon to my stream. It's caused a lot of people to come forward and interact with the stream in ways that they probably didn't themselves anticipate them doing. And on top of that, it's made a lot more things possible in terms of what I could do equipment-wise. You know, if I wanted to build a new... I might just literally in October, with the first paycheck that we get from Cheers, get a computer that's better than this one, because it's the motherboard that's kind of shitty in my computer right now, and honestly, as soon as I have to replace a motherboard, it's basically like building a whole new computer anyway, so I'd rather just get a whole fucking new computer. So I might be able to do that, so I can bring higher quality, I can render faster, the quality of the recordings can go up, I can definitely do better for everything with what Cheers has brought to the broadcast. And on top of that, it's just been fun. It's been fun seeing people interact with each other and create memes and create experiences and memories in the stream. And it also just helps support the broadcast a lot. And, you know, I'm never going to be someone to, you know, turn that down and say no. Although I do tell people to calm down when people, like, I'm legitimately afraid for their financial status when they get a little bit too crazy. So the second question is, when looking at the raid finder, especially seeing that it's popular in the Japanese community, do you think Square Enix completely oversighted the item level requirement? If you were to say you raid with a team on another server and beat A9 Savage, A10 Savage in the first 2 weeks, as a team of 8 people, you would never be able to reach the item level requirement so that everyone could queue for it across server. They said there would be no gear wall and that you can beat it with I-240 gear, but isn't the item level requirement completely contradicting? So you can beat it without it, because if you queue in with 7 people you already know, and we're talking about, like, hey, I have 7 friends, we're all in the same server, we're queuing in, the item level requirement doesn't exist. You don't need to meet the minimum item level if you're queuing together and you're all from the same server. Now, with the raid finder, obviously people on other servers, they're not going to do that. You know, that's just not going to be the case. And that's more of a... How do I put this? You're probably not going to beat A12 Savage and I-255 gear in the raid finder no matter what. So I don't even know that minimum item level is probably going to be too low, but it's also set with the expectation that everyone there is seriously trying to compete to beat the raid, and that any sort of gear advantage you could achieve would be beneficial to everyone. On top of that, in the first 2 weeks, in the first 2 days, people will be average item level 250. If you can beat a 9 and 10 and you get a couple of drops, you could feasibly move up to, I think you could feasibly move up to I-260, especially if you got a lore. You might need a lore item on top of that, which pushes back your weapon, which is pretty shitty. Yeah, you probably wouldn't feasibly be able to get 255 actually. The conditions that would have to be met are so severe that only one person at best of the 8 would be able to reach it. But they want you also to kind of, you know, if you're going to do it through the raid finder, you're doing it slower than everyone else as is, so go enjoy the other content in the game. You know, practice A9 and A10, make sure you can get those down. You're always reliably able to beat them in the raid finder. I think that's the main reason why. They just want everyone to... They don't want somebody going in with a stupid low item level just because you can beat it with that item level. Doesn't mean that when you're with 7 other completely random people that it's something you should be trying to do. Alright, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy. Been a while, so I have an I-270 ninja weapon. You, sir, are my hero. Now I can hit I-255 minimum. Hey! I got a few questions, so let's get to them. This might be odd to point out, but does Sophia the goddess use the giant face to see and talk? We don't know yet. That's it. I mean, probably her eyes, like you're saying, are just completely black. But I don't know. Maybe she does. I don't know. I don't know. 2, regarding the Warring Triad, will Zervan the Demon be next patch? 3.5, yeah. Yeah, 3.5 will be Zervan, and we probably won't have a Tower of Gods fight unless it's something that's like just story related, like, you know, it's like a one-time instance kind of deal. And 3, since we're starting to run out of main Final Fantasy summons, do you think that either next expansion ones will start using Zodiac summons from 12? So they can't use Zodiac summons from 12 because all of the Zodiac summons from 12 are the same names as the Ascians. All the Ascians have the names like Belial. They all have like Dramlek. Actually, I'm sorry. It's not the Espers names that they share. It's their signs. It's the signs they represent. So it would actually be pretty confusing if they did use the Zodiac summons, because then they would have to separate the relation between the summon and the Acuria that it works. It's like, God, I did a whole video about this where you have the light side of things, you have the dark side of things, and you have Zodiark, who's all encompassing. It's if you know Ivalice, you know what I'm talking about. It's not exactly the way I'm describing it, but you get the idea that I'm talking about. If you quickly Google the names of the Espers and the relations the Espers have from Final Fantasy XII, you'll very quickly understand what I'm saying. That being said, there are some summons that they could work. I'd like to see more things like Ravana that are original, as opposed to constantly pulling in the old summons. Although we still have Doom Train, we still have Pandemonium, we still have a few other ones. I'm trying to remember some of their names. Some of the more ambiguous ones that we definitely could use for boss fights. There's so many, and some have been used already, like Fenrir. He was a summon in a few games, 9, 11. So just the Diablos too. Like, so many have been used in different ways that aren't strictly summon based. So I expect us to see less primals and more just trials. Like, hey, this is a trial. You know, it doesn't have to be. Hades, that's another one that I was thinking of. It doesn't have to be a primal. It could just be like a trial against the boss. You know what I mean? Oh, and then there was a 4th question. If Blue Mage is added soon, I really don't think it will be. Would a reactionary style tank possibly work? When a dark parries, you can use reprisal. I think that's an awful idea. If you make a strictly proc-based tank, you're pretty much there. So what's going to be immediately compared is their efficiency as a main tank, because one of Dark Knight's annoyances is reprisal, and Paladin shield swipe is like whatever. It's a little bit of DPS increase when you're tanking, but whatever. It's immediately going to be put up against what the other tanks can do damage-wise and efficiency-wise as a main tank. I don't think making proc... It's cool to have a proc when it's so insanely good for your mitigation purposes, like reprisal is. You run into a scenario where it just feels really, really shitty when you're off tanking, and pretty much that's when you want to be main tanking. But then you have to think of what other jobs do as a main tank, and if the other tanks function as well as you do as an off tank. And that's how we got to Paladin being so valued so low, even though it's not a bad job. It's just because as a main tank, it actually can now, with some of the buffs, provide very similar efficiency to that of a Dark Knight. But with the way that the overall group ends up working out, with the way that you use Living Dead multiple times throughout the fight, with the way that a lot of damage is magic and not physical, and then some of it's darkness, so the only skill that a Paladin really has that helps negate that, something that a Dark Knight can't do, is, not Clemency, what's the other one? Divine Veil? Is that Divine Veil? Is that it? It's not Divine Seal. It's Divine Veil? Something Divine Veil. I think it's Divine Veil. I don't play Paladin, so I don't know. So yeah, there's pros and cons. I don't think I think Blue Mage as a tank, as an idea, works. I think that's probably, it makes the most sense because in most games, not every game, but in most games, Blue Mage wants to get hit to learn an attack. So, you know, it kind of works, but it's probably not going to be where the job actually ends up going. And I personally just don't see us getting Blue Mage in the expansion. I'd love to be wrong. I don't see it happening. All right, I believe this is the last question from the forums. Then I can do some live questions, which I've already expended quite a lot of time against. Ahaps, long-time lurker, first-time asker, so take a supply of the new tomestones to start in 3.4. Now, they're not tombstones. Guys, they're not tombstones. They're tomes. Like books. A book is a tome. Like Demon Tome from Gubal. There's like frickin' Abe Lincoln's tombstone is not what I'm handing in to Rowena right now, guys. I just got back into Final Fantasy XIV just in time for 3.4. Being away for 2 or 3 months has given me some time to reflect after a nasty fallout with an old static mates and why I play the game. One thing I forgot is I suck at healing. It's not that I don't understand or don't pay attention, it's that I play on a PS3. Playing as a white mage made me realize how much I rely on the Scholar Fairy to get the healing done. With money being extremely tight right now, I just don't have the money to buy a PS4 and get Heaven's Ward. Suppose my 2 question boys into this. Do you have any advice for playing a healer on PS3? So, that's only 1 question, so it's weird that it's marked as 1. You have any advice for playing? It's no different than playing it on PS4 or PC. It's just you gotta learn how to do it with a controller. Yes, the PS3 is not the strongest of devices, but you as a player need to learn how to play the job with a controller. If you bought a PS4 tomorrow, it wouldn't just make you a better white mage. That's the bottom line. It's all down to how well you learn how to play your job on your controller. So the best thing is practice. You have to practice. You can't just be like, I'm not good enough. And you can't be like, oh, it's the PS3 fault, not my own. It's not a viable enough reason. Probably the worst thing about healing is losing, like, not being at a consistent amount of frame rate. That's probably the worst part about healing, because if you lose any frames and you don't see the damage coming out at the right amount and with the right amount of time to react, it's probably not good for you. But I wouldn't blame this on the PS3. I'd look at how it's up to you to improve. Also, I'd like to say there's a chance that 4.0 is not even available on the PlayStation 3. We don't know for certain yet, but it's likely that they'll be cutting PS3 support, so you probably wouldn't even be able to play past patch 3.5 anyway. You'd be able to play in 4.0. You just wouldn't be able to do any of the expansion content. If they don't release it for the PS3. So it's hard for me to tell you to make that dedication to not pick up the PS4. I'd say try to pick up the PS4 when you have the money for it. All right, and that was actually the last question on the Dream Network forum, so I'm going to really quick go ahead and lock that for more replies so nobody tries to answer any more or ask any more questions there. Now, the other thing that I do is I take some questions live here from the Twitch chat. I'm a little bit past how long I usually record Mondays with Mrhappy. That's my fault because I wanted to make it to a certain point in Final Fantasy XIII today, and I didn't even get to do that. So on that note, guys, we're going to take some questions from the live chat here on Twitch, so ask away. All right, so the first question I'm going to take here, Mr. Happy, has there ever been any comments or situations that made you think about getting out of the content creation business? It's a very deep-seated question. Yeah, I think there, you guys may remember I put out an apology video for just my poor attitude sometime after FanFest. When I was just, it seemed like I was only going to my own YouTube videos to respond to trolls and to make myself look like a fucking fool. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm not cut out for interacting with so many different people. I mean, some of it's fair criticism, and I'm still just shit posting back at them. Sometimes it's like people who are obviously trying to get under my skin, and I'm letting them get under my skin. Maybe I'm not cut out to be in front of crowds. Like, I've always been an introvert my whole life. And maybe that's showing here. And that was like, maybe this isn't the right thing for me to do. Also, Final Fantasy XIV, I was like, you know, this game, people love it, but it's not necessarily the most stable game to be producing content for. And it makes the streaming, and this is true, some of this is still true to now. It makes the streaming environment and the YouTube content creation environment for it very volatile. Because when there's not a major patch like 3.4, when there's not major news, when there's not interviews, when there's no FanFest, when there's no expansions coming out, we went with maybe a month and a half with literally not a single reason for me to make a Final Fantasy XIV video. and I still managed to squeeze a few of them out, but a lot of them felt really, really forced. So I picked a very difficult scenario to go into content creation as a whole. And it's times like that where I go, maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe this isn't the right decision. Just things like that. Any sort of, it's just the way that I got in, and the game that I play while inside of the industry itself. I've gotten to meet a lot of great people. I've heard a lot of encouraging words. You know, I'm not strapped for cash because of my income, but that's not because I'm like somebody with like 5,000 viewers on Twitch and getting hundreds of thousands of views on all my videos on YouTube. That's because the Final Fantasy XIV community and the Final Fantasy community as a whole is very dedicated to the games itself. But I have a feeling if I dropped Final Fantasy XIV tomorrow, this would not be a life that I could feasibly continue to burden the people around me. Like, yeah, sure, I pay the rent now, I can go out, I can buy groceries, I can pay all the bills, and I can still have something saved up to pay off student loans and live a normal life. Yeah, I can do that right now. That's thanks to you guys. But if I stop playing Final Fantasy XIV tomorrow, obviously that's extreme because that wouldn't happen. But the example is, I couldn't survive off of just being an entertaining broadcaster, being an informative YouTube content creator. I would need to seriously reconsider everything if that ever happened. And that's scary because you never know when Final Fantasy XIV is not going to be sustainable enough as a content creator, as a broadcaster, to allow you to continue doing what you do. So there's a lot of factors that make me scared for the future. I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be a point where I'm not scared. Even Twitch as an environment is very unknown, with Facebook and YouTube and Twitter having these like live streaming platforms and like all these other platforms that are competing now. There's always fear. There's always fear, but you know what? With fear, I need to be able to adapt, and that's the most important thing. That's where it's going to come down to it. That's where it's going to come down to whether or not I can continue doing what I do, is how quickly I adapt and if I can adapt at all. All right, next question. Mr. Happy, in the most recent Game Watch interview, there was a question about how 14 lacks meaningful character growth. Yoshida's response was disappointing, to say the least. If 14 continues the way it is in 4.0, do you feel like the game will last? Because personally, even though I enjoy the game, I can't see myself playing past 4.0 if it's more of the same. Well, and he also, if you're talking about more of the same, he also does directly discuss what it's like as an MMO creator or as an MMO developer as a whole. You can't just go out on a limb and do things entirely fucking different. Unless you're a game that will not suffer the consequences. World of Warcraft's a good example, where Warlords of Draenor, they made Garrison such a huge thing, and yeah, it like tanked their subscriber count within months after the expansion launch, and it just kept hemorrhaging to the point where they said publicly, we're not going to report on our subscriber count ever again anymore, like not publicly. So, and that was because that's what Blizzard likes to do. Like, let's just do things, let's just fucking do this thing completely different than we did it last time, guys. And it's exciting at first, but it wears on you if it doesn't work out, it wears on you very quickly. And Final Fantasy XIV has always been the MMO that's known for, hey, you know that, hey, I will get this content. It is reliable every 3.5 months. I'm going to get to continue the story in this game. I'm going to get to do new side story quests. I'm going to get to fight the next primal. I'm going to get to do the new raids. I'm going to get to see the new raids. I'm going to get to hang out with my friends. Everyone's going to be doing this new content. I can maybe level a new job here with the expansion. I can maybe check out my craft or something. There's always going to be another option for what you can do. I don't think there will ever be a point where you will solely play the game based on... I don't think there's a single MMO I would play strictly for character growth. World of Warcraft now is trying to use the artifact weapons to give you not infinite character growth, but what feels like constant character growth. And that's already wearing down people because they want it done, and the amount of time it takes to get enough artifact points to get an actual skill after a while is awful, to say the least. It's not something that you'll have done in a short period of time. And we all know how impatient people are. Oh, it's so boring. All I do is log in and grind stuff for artifact points. I don't even do it because I need the gear anymore. No shit, you don't do it because you already geared up. What do you like? You can like infinite character growth is something that in an MMO works in so limited quantity. Even not infinite character growth, but just character growth in general. Final Fantasy XI's character growth, yeah, it was great for people who are playing a long time, but for a new player, it was awful. It was a goddamn awful experience, because you know what? Groups didn't want you if you didn't have enough merits. Groups didn't want you if you didn't have all these subclasses leveled. The groups didn't want you if you didn't have this specific piece that you personally, like, oh, I won't raid with that guy. He doesn't have the Black Mage hat from Dynamis. The motherfucker doesn't even have Dynamis Zarkabard unlocked yet. Oh, fuck that. I'm not playing. We're not inviting that Black Mage. Get a different Black Mage. But that's what you run into with too much character growth. So no matter what, in the terms of developing for an MMO, you're fucked. That's the bottom line. Like, there's no right decision 14 can make. There's no right decision Square Enix can make, because no matter what, someone's going to get fucked in the ass along the way. And the bottom line is, the way the game is now is the most commercially successful way that they will maintain this game. Whether or not the hardcore stick around, we'll see. But when one hardcore leaves, another hardcore always joins them, whether they're hardcore in the amount of time they play or the hardcore in the amount of content they want to do. There will always be somebody to replace them. Could there be improvements in the game's systems that exist now? Absolutely. Dungeons being an example. Those could be far better in terms of the way they are intriguing. Raids, there could be more raid bosses, you know? There could be 6 raid bosses, or you could have a raid that's one continuous instance as opposed to it being broken down. Those are the improvements I would look to make eventually, not systematic character growth changes. I don't think those are necessary for the perseverance of the game. All right, next question. Hey there, Mr. Happy. My question is, if you had the opportunity to create your own 14 seasonal event, what would it be? How will it be done? What is the reward for doing it? You know, that's a great question. I am a huge fan of seasonal events like the old Halloween events in World of Warcraft, very specifically. One of my favorite things is taking an old instance that has, you know, a little bit of room on the side. Maybe you develop something a little bit extra for it, and you just stick like a little extra boss into a dungeon, or you make it so that you can queue into a dungeon that already exists, but specifically the dungeon has been reworked for an event. When I think of that, I think of the Headless Horseman of World of Warcraft. I think of the Brewmaster event, or whatever his name was, the Brewmaster boss in World of Warcraft. I think World of Warcraft has done seasonal events in a very positive way of bringing you into dungeons and allowing you to complete a piece of content with people. And then you just add things. And honestly, all they do is they do that. They add a tiny little, like, fun event, like a fate, essentially, outside of a city. And then they just make sure there's, like, a mount or something that's available from it. I mean, if you can fucking get 13 yokai weapons to get a mount that is just barely different than a mount you had already gotten from getting the 13 minions, you can fucking make an event like this. And I feel like this is something that is achievable. So it's not so much that I would want to make a specific seasonal event. I would want to add that touch, or add things along that line where you can be done with it in a day if you want to, or you can grind it out and get some extra rewards, but it's not something that's like ridiculously, unfathomably bad and boring. I feel like it adds a little bit more heart to the event, and it just makes it a piece of content that people will actually log in for. All right, next question. If there was something you could bring from 11 to 14, what would it be? There's almost nothing. The only thing I could reasonably think of is the ability to spawn bosses in the open world. And that's not even because I want more open world content. That's because I remember as a new player, and even when I was leveling Healer Happy, when I ran into a hunt and I saw all those people group up to kill it, yeah, it was over quick, but you know what? It was exciting for me as a new player to see this content that I couldn't really participate in yet, but you know what? I could watch it and observe it and get an idea of what I was gonna be doing at max level. That's honestly the only reason. So ZNMs, I guess, but not even the ZNM system, because I'm not fucking down to take pictures of shit all day. There's almost nothing of Final Fantasy XI that I would realistically want in Final Fantasy XIV, mostly because it doesn't work. None of it works in this day and age if you want a successful MMO, unless you do it in very, very limited quantity. So the ability to spawn bosses in the open world is pretty much where I draw the line on that one. All right, I'm going to take this last question, which is kind of a silly one, because I'm not seeing very many good questions in my chat after those first few amazing questions. It says, Mr. Happy, is there something you are irrationally afraid of? Irrationally. I don't feel like I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of insects. I'm afraid of all bugs. I was allergic to the touch of a bug when I was really young, so even if it just walked on my skin, I would get a rash. It didn't even have to bite me. And then I also had bad experiences with fire ants when I was like a baby, so it kind of just like ingrained in my brain, if you see a bug, it's gonna fucking die or you're gonna fucking run away crying. I don't feel like being afraid of bugs is irrational. Perhaps my reaction to my fear of them can be irrational at times. I'm not afraid of it. Like, I'm not afraid of anything weird like pickles. Like, I'm not, there's just nothing weird like that. That's a really, really tough one. Man, man, man. Like, I don't mind needles. The dentist isn't that bad. Like, oh, you know what? I don't think this is that irrational, but this is the closest thing to an irrational fear that I think I'm going to be able to remember. And I think I have a fear of people's hands being near my face. Now, what I mean by that is, if anybody's hand is just near my face, not even touching my face, I get like really uncomfortable. And like, so a good example is when I go to get my hair cut, I'm perfectly fine. You know, they're cutting my hair, whatever. But as soon as like I ask, hey, can you trim the beard? Like, I close my eyes when they trim the beard because my beard gets scruffy. So like, it's like the hair from my beard gets everywhere when I'm shaving it, unless I'm shaving it with just like a straight up straight razor. And so, but like they'll like do this, like I'll have my eyes closed and they'll be, you know, shaving whatever with, you know, whatever. And they'll just stop. And I don't know what they're doing because I'm not going to open my eyes because I've probably got beard hair all over my face. And so I'm just like waiting, and then like I kind of go to peek my eyes, and then sometimes they like just all of a sudden like I don't even hear them coming. I don't know. I don't hear what they're doing. They're just like they just stop and they're just looking, like trying to figure out what they're gonna do. And then I'm just like, and then all of a sudden they're just like this. I'm like I just get out of the way real quick. So that's probably the most irrational fear I have. I just can't stand when people's hands get near my face. It's like it's bad. If I'm not expecting, if I give you permission to touch my face, I'm fine. But like if I have my eyes closed and you touch I guess I'm afraid of being touched while my eyes are closed. Giggity. Like Mel, sometimes she likes to poke me in the back when I'm sleeping, and sometimes she'll poke me like close to my butthole. And when she does that, I'm like, oh, get away from me. Like I'll fucking get up and jump and run away when it comes to that. So, yeah, it's pretty bad. So maybe I just don't like being touched when my eyes close, when my eyes are closed. Maybe it's that. I think that's a good answer to an irrational fear question. So I think that'll be how we end. Well, I said near my butthole, guys, not in my butthole. Like she'll like poke my butt cheek when I'm sleeping, and I'll just be like, get away from me, get the fuck away from me. So that's pretty much how we're going to be doing that. Hell, even if she pokes me in, like, my lower back, I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing? Get away from there. That's within 20 feet. I don't want that. I don't want that shit. Get out of here. I don't want it. Point to them on the doll where they touched you. Turn it around. Right there. Sir, that's not even in your butthole. Well, it makes me uncomfortable. So that's what we're going to say. On that note, guys, we're going to wrap up Mondays with Mr. Happy. Everybody, thank you for watching. One last time, videos under the video, at the bottom of the video, other videos that we put out this week. So, that's after that strange story. I mean, you're going to want to watch all those videos, right? You're going to want to wash your brain of those thoughts. So definitely watch any videos. On the Twitch stream, obviously you guys don't see any fucking videos. So I'm going to take a few minutes to wrap up here on Twitch. But for the YouTube side of things, thank you for watching. Be sure to ask your questions on the Dream Network forums for next week's Mondays with Mr. Happy. Try to take some time away from 3.4 to ask a few simple questions. Anyway, thank you for watching. And until next time, take care.